Are you afraid of taking risks? Do you think about trying things and a little voice in your head says, And is the reason you don't take risks is that you're afraid maybe you're going to fail? Welcome to the club. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about taking risks and maybe add a little more thought to how we all think about risk and maybe help you have a bigger life because you try more. Ready? Here's a little cheerleading about risk. If you don't take any risk, you're going to have a smaller life. You think about it. You've always had to take risks. I'm watching a baby cousin who's trying to figure out how to crawl. And she's trying to figure out how to crawl without toppling over. So she puts out one hand and one knee, and then she's kind of thinking about it for a while, and it feels scary. And she's working up the courage to put that other hand out there. Not quite there yet, but we know she's going to do it. And then she's going to have to stand up. And then she's going to have to find her mouth with a fork. That's what risk is like. From the time we're infants, we have to embrace risk because that's part of growth. And if we, from the beginning, we're allowed to say, or if nature let us say, no risk for you, then we would have a little tiny person in a bubble life. There would be no excitement. There would be no joy. There would be no growth. So risk is kind of like the good fairy who comes and waves a wand over you and your crib and says, magic can happen. So the first thing to do is think risk. Risk is how we get reward. Risk creates reward. Yummy. Risk can be yummy. The thing is, you cannot, if you are a living being, you cannot avoid risk. Can't. You just can't. Waking up in the morning, getting out of bed, you could fall over and conk your head on the floor. Risk is everywhere. Some risks come to us. The news is about dangerous things that happen in the world. Right now, there are days when it's risky to go outside because it's too hot and too polluted to breathe. So there is risk everywhere. You don't get to choose a risk-free life. There's another part of risk, which is that if you're a teenager or a young adult, your brain is still working on trying to figure out about risks. So you may be learning about life by taking risks that are not good risks. For example, you know this, but I'm betting some of you have tried it, thinking, I haven't really had so much of something that it counts as driving under the influence. It's not really driving under the influence. I can drive. Now, that's an unhealthy risk, and you know it. Nothing I can say about that 900 people haven't already said to you, but there are risks that you're going to take because you're young. And that's how young people learn about the world. We get that. Then there's a whole other category that we're going to talk about today, which is healthy risks. So there's risks like DUI and the risk I took when I got on the back of a big red motorcycle I shouldn't have been on. Story for another day. But they're risks that are good for you. And what I want to encourage you to do is to look for those risks. And let's start thinking about healthy risk. A healthy risk is trying something that scares you. And you can start with something small, like an exercise class where you think you're going to look like an idiot in front of other people, where you think you're going to be uncoordinated. A healthy risk is something like saying hello to someone you've met at work or outside work in a, non-come on friendly way. Introducing yourself to someone new, trying something new. Those are all healthy risks. If you're not doing something because you want it, but you're afraid to try it, and you know that there's a chance that it could have a reward for you and you can see the reward, that's a healthy risk. Trying something that you wouldn't otherwise try. I had a long thing about Tony Robbins, and I was not going to take any Tony Robbins classes. No, I'm not even sure why I felt that way. And then I thought, okay, I'll risk it because someone I trusted a great deal said, look at this Matthew McConaughey course. And I was like, rah, 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 rah. And I took it and it was life-changing. So what did I learn? I wasn't trying something not because it was bad, but because I had a bias that wasn't proven. And it was something I should have tried. And this is characteristic of a healthy risk because someone close to me who I trusted told me to give it a shot. Always in life, if you have people close to you who are good people and you know who they are, They're not the people who are encouraging you to flake on your responsibilities and get high. They're the people who are encouraging you to study first and then flake on other people. So if the people you trust and who support you are saying, come with me and let's try this thing, that's a good risk and it's worth considering. Now, here's a myth that I was taught was true that is really, on the face of it, ridiculous, but we only just now have research to prove it. For maybe the last 40 years, there has been a ton of research that says women are more risk averse than men. Women fear risk more than men. And that was taken as a given in financial services because everyone said women invest differently than men. Therefore, they are risk averse. And that got fed to me, and I am embarrassed to say I swallowed it. But guess what? I mean, when you think about it, of course, women aren't more afraid of risk than men. It's just that men are more likely to go skydiving. That is true. There are a lot more men who skydive than women. Men are much less likely to have babies. Women get pregnant. Women have babies. That is a very scary thing. That is the biggest risk on the planet, and women are doing it all the time, even as we speak. So no, it's not that women are afraid of risk. It's just that women think about the consequences differently than men do. That's all. So if somebody tries to tell you mansplain or tensplain, which I heard this week on a Barbie movie promo, if somebody's trying to mansplain to you that women take less risk, just say to them, oh, and how did your mother feel when she got pregnant with you? Was she a little bit afraid? So what do you do? First of all, quit lying to yourself. You are not afraid of risk. You take on risk every day. Accept that risk is going to come your way and start a risk practice. You know how you have a gratitude practice where every day you tell yourself what you're grateful for? Or they're just those moments like, I never noticed that. It's so beautiful. A risk practice is the same thing. Take a small risk every day, just a tiny one, and identify it in your mind as, I took this risk and this is what I learned. So a down-home example, I am afraid of spicy foods. I have like this blanket thing about, oh, I can't eat spicy foods. Oh, I get all flustered about it. Really? So that means I'm cutting out entire cuisine because I'm afraid of the risk that it's going to upset my tummy. So today, my risk is I'm going to go for the mild sauce, but I'm going to have Indian food for dinner. There you go. I'm going to go for a small risk. Risk practice. It's something that is life-changing to get better at risk, because that's the beginning of the chain we're going through where we talk about resilience. If you practice risk, it's the beginning of starting to practice being resilient, which is one of the best skills in the galaxy. In the past, and even now that I don't take risks, is that I'm afraid I'm going to fail. And failure takes a lot of forms. I'm afraid I'm just going to flat out fail, or I'm afraid I'm going to have a social failure, which is I'm going to be embarrassed, I'm going to be judged, someone's not going to like me. There is a lot of risk of failure. One thing I like about Emma Chamberlain, and believe is part of her success, is that she didn't prejudge failure. So I think, a perfect example of Emma Chamberlain taking risks is that if Emma has to pass gas, she's fine to fart on camera, right? I mean, how much self-confidence does it take to fart on camera or even in front of anybody? Whatever you think about that shows the sign that she's willing to have that kind of epic social failure means that she's willing to take some risks. Have I failed? I fail every day. I fail all the time. I can tell you a good story about work failure. Let me tell you a good story about work failure. I applied for a job when I was living in Washington, D.C., and I thought it sounded really cool. And I got a very nice form letter back from them that indicated to me that I ended up in the trash pile at the beginning. It's sort of like, now you don't even get a communication back. There's an SEO search, you don't make it through the screen. You just get ghosted by your potential employer, which is like, that hurts. And I think that's a lot of reason the reason people don't apply for jobs. So anyway, I applied for a job that turned me down. I licked my wounds for a while, and I was so obsessed with this job that I kept the letter. I kept it. I'm not even sure why. Found it 6 months later when I was cleaning out drawers, and I thought, I really want this. And so I pulled out my big person underwear and I reached out to them and said, I really like you. Has anything changed in the last 6 months? They were so stunned. They were like, yeah, come in. We'll hire you as a temp for the week. And that turned it out to be a full-time job for about a year. And I learned a ton from it. And it was the beginning of my career. So it's not about, oh God, I'm so great, but that I was terrified. I had failed. I had been rejected. And I tried again in the most carefully guarded way, and it worked for me. Failing is okay. I hope you do fail. I hope you fail a lot, because the more you fail, the more you're pushing the edges of what you can be, right? If you're not failing, you're not really pushing it. You're staying in the zone somebody meant for you. You have to fail to live, to really live. So go fail.